Welcome to Quiet Scare, where the whispers are getting louder during the day. Built for leaning in, not drifting off. True accounts narrated into fiction, a blend of truth with a little creative mystery. Although the channel is best known for its sleep-friendly horror, the current collection is better suited for an active daylight listen. Spot these episodes, you'll see a sun icon on the thumbnail image, and the title will say "Not for Sleep." The quiet in the day is not empty. I couldn't make it to my grandma's funeral. Work called it unforeseen circumstances. The airline called it operational, and my body called it a small collapse. I watched the live stream on my phone in a break room that smelled like microwaved broccoli, crying into a stack of paper towels. Later that night, I went home and played her last voicemail again. The one where her breath made that soft whistle before she said, "If I go first, take me to my sister. I want to see the river again." 2 weeks later, I booked a Greyhound to Kentucky because grief makes you stubborn and a little superstitious. The river town felt like half-remembered childhood. Brick storefronts, a floodwall tattooed with fading murals, barges groaning by like old men clearing their throats. It was hot for fall, the kind of wet heat that makes your shirt cling, with a storm rumored in the air. The cemetery sat on a rise above a bend in the river, a rectangle of iron fence and magnolia shade, where the city thinned into rails and kudzu. My grandmother's sister Ruth was buried there. I'd never known her, just stories about the pretty one who ran away and didn't come back. Her stone read 1933, 1962. The dates looked like a hallway I could almost step into. I brought a plastic bouquet, a cheap drugstore candle, and one of Grandma's old scarves that still smelled faintly of ponds and menthol. The candle refused to stay lit because the wind off the river kept teasing it out. I wandered the rows in the sticky air, reading the names out loud like I was greeting the neighbors. Mary, Joseph, Lena. Hey, Ruth. I told her who I was, how Grandma always said she loved the sound of coins clattering in her purse, how one summer night she slipped out, and a week later, a telegram came with too many words and not enough of her. I talked to the grass instead of the stone. The stone felt too much like a closed door. The city hummed just beyond the fence horns. A siren, someone's laughter, the slow slap of the river. A jogger passed on the sidewalk and gave me that look people give when they're not sure if you're grieving or doing something stranger. By late afternoon, the sun dragged itself down behind the brick buildings, and the magnolia leaves turned glossy black. The river darkened to the color of moving iron. I tried the candle again, and this time the flame caught and held, a soft orange bead against the cooling blue of the evening. I laid the scarf across Ruth's stone and poured an inch of sweet tea into a plastic cup. Grandma always said Ruth liked it. Half sugar, no lemon. "I'm sorry I missed it," I said quietly. "I'm here now. I'm taking you to her like she wanted." Dark settled fast, thick and close, the kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. Bugs started their chorus. The candlelight made the fence shadows stretch and shift across the grass as I moved my head. I had no ritual, no rules for this. Just the scarf, the candle, the tea, and a wish. I felt foolish saying it out loud, but I did anyway. "Grandma? You said the river. You said your sister. I'm here." The air changed first. Not colder, just thinner, as if a window had opened somewhere in the world. The candle's flame stretched sideways, then straightened and stood taller. It pulled hard toward the river and held there like it had heard its name. I smelled lilac, wrong for fall, and Vicks, sharp and familiar from Grandma's bedroom. A soft pressure laced around my wrist, cool and steady, as if an unseen hand were making sure I stayed. A voice touched the back of my thoughts, landing where headache lives, and sadness sleeps. "There you are, baby." I almost dropped the cup. "You sound I am me," she said, humor threading through the words. "You brought me to my sister just like I asked." The candle trembled. In the dark ahead of me, something shifted, a shimmer like breath on glass. Two figures formed, edges wavering like heat above asphalt. One slight, shoulders drawn in, the scarf now draped across what passed for her shape. The other stood straighter, Grandma's outline without weight, the bun pulled too tight, the left shoulder lower from years of carrying a child on that side. They were translucent, and the river's darkness flowed through them without touching them. My brain decided to make room for what it couldn't explain. Ruthie, Grandma said, the name breaking at the end like a wave dissolving in foam. I've been waiting, the smaller figure answered, then turned to me with a soft startle of recognition. You look like Lena around the eyes. My mom, I said, because talking was easier than breaking down. Shh, Grandma said gently, you're here. You brought my breath where it needed to go. I didn't understand what she meant, but I nodded. The pressure at my wrist loosened, then returned a reminder, not a threat. They turned toward each other, and in that shift was so much history that I looked away. It felt private, like watching someone drink after years in a desert. The candle flame steadied. Instead of cold fingers or strange marks, I felt ordinary warmth like Sunday morning in a clean kitchen, like the smell of toast, like knowing the first line of your favorite song before it plays. You brought her, Ruth said. We couldn't reach each other, we were on two sides of a river with no bridge. The cemetery is the bridge, Grandma replied, with that familiar sermon lilt in her voice. Names, stone, a girl with good shoes. Bridges need names, say the names, and the span holds. I glanced at my dusty flats and managed a laugh. I figured heels in a cemetery would be a bad look. They smiled. One who never met me alive, the other who just left us weeks before. They looked like the photos on Grandma's dresser come loose into the night. They talked first in the shorthand of sisters, about May's red dress, about the boy from the Smoketown drugstore who thought he was Elvis, about Daddy hiding coins in the sugar can. I only half understood, but the way they smiled at each memory was enough. Then they turned to me. They thanked me. They shared things no one else could know. How Grandma once sewed $1 into the hem of my recital dress, because little girls always need bus money. How Ruth had written Lena a letter she never sent and hid it behind a loose brick in the garage. How the family's famous pound cake recipe was really 2 recipes smashed together because great-grandma was tired. I knew it, I whispered. I knew it was orange peel and not lemon. Of course it was, Grandma said. Lemon is for pie. Ruth leaned in closer than I thought she could and shaped a name with her mouth, dropping it into my thoughts like a penny in a jar. The name of a person I didn't know. A street I did. Tell her I didn't forget her, she said. I just couldn't get back. A barge rumbled past on the river, and the ground gave a faint friendly tremor, as if something beneath it stretched. Why me? I asked quietly. Why can I see you? Grandma tilted her head, almost smiling. Because you came. Because you stood where the names are and said them out loud. It's like whistling for birds. They come because you sound like home. But listen to me. Just one rule. Never say the names of the living in the cemetery. Bridges need names, but they need the right ones. I nodded, pulse loud in my ears. The candle leaned toward the river again, thin and bright as a drawn line. I didn't want the moment to end. Tears blurred the candlelight. I don't want this to stop. It doesn't stop, she said. Her hand hovered near my cheek without touching. It changes shape, like a river, like us. We're going to walk now. Where? Lull them down, Ruth answered, and somehow the word felt like up. Grandma gave me the same look she used to when I left after Sunday lunch. Take care, wear warm socks. Don't let your car go under a quarter tank. Check the sugar can for coins. I nodded, suddenly sounding like a child again when I said I will. Tell Lena about the letter, Ruth added. She flickered at the edges as if a door had opened somewhere behind her. A fresh gust came off the river, carrying a high, thin whistle. The candle popped softly and pulled so hard toward the water that wax ran in one quick sheet. The cool pressure closed at my wrist again, firm now, cautioning, as if the bridge itself were reminding me of the rule. Their shapes began to lose their crispness, or maybe the world around them grew sharper. For a heartbeat, Grandma looked just as she had in her wedding photo. Gap-toothed, grinning, veil slightly crooked. Ruth looked like a stranger I might pass on a sidewalk and never know I'd missed. Thank you, they said together, the word falling into the night like a shared breath. The light thinned and folded away, leaving me with the scarf on the stone, the cup of tea gone warm, and the quiet sense that an old ache in me had been picked up and carried elsewhere. My legs trembled. I sat down in the grass and laughed softly because standing felt too proud for the moment. I stayed until the candle guttered and died. I packed the scarf and the empty cup. Before leaving, I spoke their names again: Ruth, May, Joseph, and then my own, because names felt like bridges, and I wanted to be part of it. I did not say the living. The city went on breathing beyond the fence. The river kept doing what rivers do, carrying things, explaining nothing. I walked down the slope toward the motel. A train moaned in the distance. A dog barked once as if to issue a late warning. At the floodwall, I stopped to touch the damp, cool paint of a faded steamboat mural. The air felt heavy and ordinary again, which was almost disappointing. The next morning on the bus ride home, my aunt texted me a photo of a yellowed envelope she'd just found tucked behind a loose brick in the garage wall. Brick dust on her fingers. The letter was addressed to my mom in a neat teenage hand. Inside, folded small, it began: "I didn't forget you. I just couldn't get back." I switched my phone to airplane mode and stared out the window at miles of river I couldn't see, but somehow felt I was crossing. The ache was still there, but it hummed softer now, like a quiet kitchen, like a steady candle flame, like a voice that knows all your bad habits and loves you anyway. As the bus pulled onto the highway, my phone, still in airplane mode, played Grandma's voicemail without being touched. It ended the way it always did. Then a second voice, soft and certain, said my name, Ruth, sounding like home.